On an international front, how have you seen the market change?
A lot has changed in gaming. I mean, once upon a time, gaming was, one global product that you would push into nearly every country and simply translate the pages.
How have you seen the Maltese market evolve, or maybe even devolve in certain instances, over these past 18 years? Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of the SiGMA podcast, where today we'll be meeting the CEO of Quantum Gaming, Oliver De Bono. Oliver, good afternoon and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Trev. Looking forward to this chat.
It is going to be a chat, but it's going to be quite a detailed chat. First things first, even for the people who watch the podcast, and I also urge you to subscribe to SiGMA World channel on YouTube in order for you to keep up to date with the developments, not just on this podcast, but also with what is going on in the entire SiGMA world, with a number of events coming up in the coming weeks and months. But Oliver, coming to you, how long have you been in this sector? And how did you get started?
About 18 years. I actually started in 2005, recruitment actually. Back then, I was putting teams together for, at the time, newly established businesses in Malta. We were recruiting for the likes of Bet24, Unibet, Betway, in the early days of gaming in Malta, let's say. And it was quite an exciting time. This gaming industry had arrived, and I started pushing more business development for recruitment firms. So looking for new clients, putting teams together. Prior to that, I was focusing more on IT recruitment. So yeah, about 18 years I've seen the gaming industry, let's say, evolve in Malta and globally.
And okay, many points to take from that one single 18-year mention. So, and nowadays, what are you doing? CEO of Quantum Gaming, but what exactly is Quantum Gaming? What are you doing with Quantum Gaming?
So Quantum Gaming is primarily a platform, a casino and sportsbook platform. We have recently launched our product out in the market. We offer white label and turnkey solutions for both casino and sportsbook. We also have a subsidiary that offers lottery solutions. We have been in development for about 2 years now. We decided on the venture of Quantum Gaming, having been an operator myself for the previous 2 years. One of the main, let's say, issues I had foreseen is, given the size of the global markets today and the demand on technology, there was a lot of dated technology in the industry. So Quantum Gaming was an attempt, or now a successful attempt actually, at reassessing the way casino and sportsbook platforms are built. We've, as I said earlier, launched only this year, but we've had quite a successful launch. But primarily, as I said, we are providing sportsbook and casino solutions in a very unique manner. Our USP
Why
is
unique?
So our USP is actually that. Our USP is our ability to launch casinos within a matter of weeks. We can actually launch out a template casino brand within 2 weeks. It actually takes between 4 and 6 hours to create the back office. However, there's a little bit of work involved when you're connecting the front and whitelisting the actual URL. But we have quite a unique product that allows us to scale quickly.
And why does it just take 4 to 6 hours? How does that happen? Without wanting to reveal any secrets here, but I mean, 4 to 6 hours is a pretty aggressive timeline.
Yeah, so what we actually do is we've actually separated what in the industry would call the back and the front end. And our back end primarily is a database. And what we do is we take that configuration that we've created a template casino from. Our template casino is actually called Wikibet. And what we do is all the APIs, games, payments configuration, and rule sets that have been embedded in Wikibet, we're able to replicate that. So we have an auto replication call in our back office, and we simply call to the back office and we say, make another copy of Wikibet. What this allows us to do is to replicate the entire configuration, create its own instance, so ultimately its own database, And then what we need to do after that is connect it to a front end. So a website, which could be designed by us, it could be designed by our clients, but this is the ultimate difference. So we managed to launch that back office quite quickly.
Okay. May I ask, is AI involved in any of these processes? Do you use AI? How have you found AI in the gaming sector?
So AI, I mean, it's quite a buzzword in gaming. We don't use it as such when we build out our instances or when we replicate our back office. We are actually implementing a number of interesting, let's say, AI processes, most of which is around customer recommendations. So kind of the Netflix model of what a customer sees. A lot of automation in gaming to date has been around, creating more automation. If a customer likes a certain genre, your brand shows them that genre. What we are doing with AI is taking that a step forward, by assuming, that particular demographic would like to see slot games or particular sports. Automatically, if a 25-year-old German male, even though we don't touch the German market, comes to our website, the AI should assume that this individual should be shown games that are popular in Germany and Bundesliga when it comes to sports.
For the benefits of the peace of mind of your legal person, I will repeat that Germany is not a market that's quantum.
No, we don't touch the German market. I use it as an example to state Bundesliga and particular slot games because it is a very large market in the gaming industry. Our brands actually focus more on the Asian markets at this point in time.
You mentioned the Netflix model, Oliver. By Netflix model, you mean that basically, as time goes by, Netflix starts to realize what an individual or a member's particular taste in movies or series is. So this would be the sort of thing that one would be seeing on the website of the operator. That is, your favorite games would always be the ones on top, the ones you play the most.
Exactly. So it's not just about favorite games. I mean, Netflix has a really good engine, and that's why we actually call it the Netflix model, because I think it was one of the first, let's say, mainstream products out there that really gave a customer a unique feeling. So every customer, when you go onto your own Netflix account, it recommends what it thinks you like. So it's got, okay, you've watched these last, this is what I think you like. When your wife's been using your Netflix account, the moment reality TV
or your daughter, when you start getting Peppa Pig.
Exactly. So how detailed is it for Netflix to take everything that you've done and say, you've watched this, why don't you try this? I mean, This is kind of where AI comes in more for recommendations.
Okay.
Artificial intelligence is suggestive. It's because X happened, we think Y should be the next course of action. This is more AI. Being able to track what you've done and saying you've watched these things in the past is more automation and just memory more so. But what we're trying to do is to adopt those kind of models when it comes to casino games, slot games, sports, and so on and so forth.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go back now, because Oliver, you've said you've been in this industry 18 years. You've seen a lot of change in the industry in these 18 years. I want to take it twofold. Let's start international. On an international front, how have you seen the market change? Be it regulation, jurisdictional development, but even products, because it's very clear you're a product-driven person, Oliver. So could you, on an international front, the changes that you've seen in the past 18 years?
Well, a lot has changed in gaming. I mean, once upon a time, gaming was, one global product that you would push into nearly every country and simply translate the pages. This is what it was once upon a time. And, things have changed dramatically. I mean, not just because products have evolved, but because regulation has evolved. In today's market, you have certain geos that don't allow for certain games. So look how products have really, tailored themselves globally. In Asia, certain games work. You have the popularity of different table games. If you're in Europe, it's blackjack, and the West, it's blackjack, while in Asia, it's baccarat. And I think kind of tailoring and becoming more micro focused on a particular market has really, really, really changed. But yeah, I mean, a lot has changed since the days that I started in gaming. I remember a time there were 4 or 5 major brands. Malta was the place to be within the gaming industry.
Well, now you're jumping into the question I would like to make. But I'd like to stick to product because I actually have a product question. In Asia, one of the most popular games is pachinko. This game which is played with the ball bearings, put them in instead of coins. It's a particular unique game. In your 18 years, have you ever seen Asian content or Asian products, Asian style product, which has actually managed to take seed in, for example, the European market? Has pachinko, for example, picked up in the European market? Has baccarat as a table game picked up in the European market? Or are they purely Asian-driven content?
Well, games are quite universal. I mean, when it comes to pachinko, primarily that's a Japanese game. Pachinko is kind of less gambling and more arcade. That's why, in Japan, where gaming has been heavily regulated, for decades. When I say heavily regulated, I mean simply banned. But the point is that pachinko was the result of a restricted market where players would go in. They would play a kind of variation of pinball, which you have very little control over. And instead of actually winning monetary prizes, you would actually exchange your tokens, similar to an arcade, for little gifts. And it's very funny if you've actually ever been to Japan. It's one of the coolest things ever, because next door you have these little stores that then will actually exchange the gifts for monetary prizes. So pachinko it's really Japan, and it's interesting because it's now going online. After decades of pachinko being the most popular game in Japan, it's being sent online. I don't know how quickly that's going to adapt to European markets, but other Asian games which are quite popular. I mean, baccarat is primarily a game played in the Asian land-based casinos. It's now online. There's actually quite a big trend in the West for players to start, focusing more on baccarat. Primarily it used to be blackjack, and if we go even further back, it was all poker. But blackjack has been popular for decades, and now baccarat is making that switch. It doesn't mean that games aren't, let's say, more regional. You have a lot of games that are played purely in particular regions, like, for example, in India, in the subcontinent, Team Bati and Andar Bahar are the big games over there. They're not really played international. So, slot games are quite international, and certain games are trending. So they are moving to the West, and Western games are moving to the East.
In fact, I was seeing. Because I don't just do this podcast, but I also follow other podcasts. And an interesting podcast I was following was talking about the emergence of mahjong, the Asian game. It's like dominoes played with those, but it's with images, visuals, and this has really picked up. And in Canada, for example, especially where there's a sizable Asian community, casinos there are doing huge in-person mahjong tournaments, where you qualify through online gameplay. But you're seeing a cross between the online and the land-based. There was a time where we used to talk about this buzz of online product going land-based, vice versa, or as even mixing, for example, games of skill and chance. But those games did not pick up at all. But how do you see this cross-convergence between online and land-based, especially as the market matures and grows?
Well, again, gambling primarily today, the larger market is still the land-based market. I mean, the land-based operation dwarfs what we see online, even though the numbers are quite big. There was always this argument whether online gaming takes away from land-based. I think as an online operator myself and an online B2B provider, I don't actually see it. I think the size of the land-based market is, intense. If you look at the numbers if you compare what a land-based operator makes versus an online, it's absolutely astonishing, in the likes of Vegas, Macau, and so on and so forth. But I mean, there's always been, a cross-pollination. If you look at the land-based glam has actually led to, giants like Evolution Gaming. This was what people wanted, to feel that they're inside a casino. So there's always a bit of cross-pollination. But going back to your earlier statement, I mean, especially now in a global community, you do have demographics of people who are bringing games to new markets, like you said yourself, mahjong in Canada. This is baccarat in the West as well, which is becoming more and more popular, and vice versa. Western games. I mean, Texas Hold'em. Ultimately, it is a Western game which is globally played today. So there's a lot of cross pollination. I think a digital age has really helped that happen, and there's some very interesting products in the market that are kind of, I suppose they're evolving. Casino games today, if you looked at what blackjack and Texas Hold'em was in the past, there's 100 variations of each today. So, markets do change, demand, culture shifts, they do aid in the change in product. And I'm quite excited to see what's really coming up. I mean, as a B2B provider, what we try to do is take as much content as possible, funnel it all into our centralized platform, allowing a player, who's based pretty much anywhere in the world, except certain markets that we don't touch, to play any game from any particular region.
And then it's your Netflix model, which allows them to, it's your Netflix model, which then allows them to let's say, have then the content which they want to play as being their favorite, right?
Exactly. I mean, Netflix, the idea behind it is more recommending what we think that player would like, but ultimately the goal of our platform is to give them access to everything. If you want to play slots, you want to play live casino, you want to play table games, it's there for you to enjoy. Online gambling is meant to be a form of entertainment. And the idea is the more content we can give to a customer, the better and more immersive their experience is going to be.
Okay. I'm going to come back now to your 18-year history, but now we're going local. How have you seen, Oliver, you're Maltese, both Maltese. How have you seen the Maltese market evolve, or maybe even devolve in certain instances over these past 18 years?
I think Malta has, in all fairness, yes, the industry has changed on the island. I think there's been a lot of contributors to that. I think till today, Malta is still considered one of the global hubs of iGaming. Again, regulation changes. Some things that affect the Maltese gaming community don't always come from within. COVID was a big contributor to that, but I think it's very interesting to see how far Malta has come. Once upon a time when the LGA at the time had set up shop, there was a huge influx of investment and business. I think till today, the gaming community and the regulator is a massive contributor to the Maltese economy. But yeah, times have changed. I think in the last 4 or 5 years, there's been a little bit of a migration out of the Maltese gaming community, more so because, in a digital age, people are less reliant on location than they used to be. So Malta initially became a fantastic gaming hub. One, it's low cost workforce, relatively low cost of living. 18 years ago, people were moving to Malta saying, wow, how cheap it is, how fantastic it is to hire people there. As a recruiter at the time, we used to, not have a very hard time convincing people, come and live in Malta. You could rent a nice 2-bedroom seafront apartment for 600 euros on a gaming salary. The quality of life was fantastic. Obviously, with the, mass increase of the Maltese economy, things have become more expensive. So you can't sell that anymore. You can't say come to Malta because the cost of living is lower. In fact, Malta is today considered, in all fairness, one of the more expensive locations to hire in Europe. If you compare it to the now emerging markets like Spain, Portugal, Cyprus, where a lot of the gaming community that was once in Malta has actually moved to. And because you no longer need to be present in, so many large corporate offices, a lot of companies have deleveraged a singular location. I would say 80 or 90% of operators in Malta have multiple offices spread over multiple regions. And it's kind of given the employee a choice, to work. I wouldn't say remote because, our group is not a fan of remote working, but what we did over that is literally...
But you could choose to spend some time working in an office in another country. It's
Exactly. In
within the same
fact, we
group.
have within our office here in Cyprus, our team from Serbia come over for 1 week a month. We offer the same incentive now in Manila because we've established a base over there. We have teams in about 5 or 6 different offices at this point and offer the employees the ability to move between offices, you know. So yeah, going back to your question, the Maltese, gaming community has evolved massively. There's still a substantial, amount of talent in Malta. No one can argue that. And I think, nearly 20 years of a very mature market, Malta has created some of the, the biggest and strongest brands in the industry. Do they need to continue to remain on the island? Obviously, we're seeing a trend that it doesn't seem to be the case anymore, but I still believe Malta will remain a hub. Maybe not, let's say, the market share it's had in the past, but certainly will continue to become or maintain its position as one of the leaders in the gaming industry.
You made an interesting point, Oliver. You spoke about regulation changes. Because in your opinion, changes driven by legal developments as opposed to changes driven by product, which one of them actually have the better impact on the market? Are they product driven or are they legislatively driven?
I think to say the words better impact, I mean, look, regulation leads to more player security. That's always the intent. The players are protected. However, I've always had the belief that over regulation stifles innovation. And at the same time, it also leads to an increased black market. Regions of the world that simply, I'm not going to use the word, ban, but over-regulate. I mean, there are some blanket ban regions of the world, simply create a black market that offers the players no protection. And the same happens with over-regulation. So, bettering a region, there's always an argument to be said that, they protect customers. A lot of arguments also say that regulation can sometimes protect state and private monopolies, let's be fair. So it's a combination of who gets it right, and regulation in certain regions has also changed the global climate. Malta was once the largest remote hub. However, because so many places that businesses used to target from Malta now require local presence and their own national license, having offices in remote locations, not just Malta, Gibraltar, Isle of Man, has changed. What we call the .com markets have shrunk significantly. So
We're more in
to
the
be
dot
a
country.
successful, exactly, and to be a successful gaming business today, you have to be very versatile. You have to have presence in, I would say, nearly every one of those markets that you're targeting. You can't simply target them remotely anymore.
Adapt or die.
This is what's happened. I mean, we've seen a huge change in climate. I think every week we hear something, about certain companies with mass redundancies. We
Yes.
have offices being shut down, reopened in other places. It's part of the business, and versatile businesses are the ones surviving.
Oliver, we only have literally 2 minutes left before we need to stop. How I wish I knew what last question I could ask you because you've given me so many points. But ultimately, how do you see the market in general growing? What is required for the market to grow? Do we need more product-driven innovation? Do we need legislative information? Do we need tech innovation? What do we need for the market to grow and to survive?
I think the gambling market will continue to grow. I mean, in all fairness, it is one of the oldest industries known to man. I think markets naturally correct themselves. And, a lot of people argue that it needs more regulation or it needs less regulation. In all fairness, markets have a tendency to correct themselves. And as a closing statement, I think, the industry will have a correction at some point. I think there are some parts of the world that have regulated so heavily that they've increased the sizes of their black markets, and some regions that need regulation to protect the customers. So, The gaming industry will continue to grow. I think as far as content goes, it's never been more exciting. I mean, the content providers today are absolutely incredible. To name a few, if you look at what the likes of Pragmatic, Play and Go, Evo are doing, there are incredible products in the market today. So it's less of a case of needing more content and just giving it time to correct itself. Don't get me wrong. I think, the industry is still thriving, but there will be some changes. This I'm sure of. I mean, look at Brazil today. A new regulator coming out in the market, changing the landscape. We're seeing similar patterns. I mean, who ever thought that the Middle East would start regulating gaming? But we are where we are, and it's a very exciting time.
Oliver, I thank you so much for this conversation, this chat that we just had. Wish you the best of luck, and thank you once again for being a guest on the SiGMA podcast. Thank you to all our viewers and listeners on YouTube and the different channels, and we'll be back with another edition of the SiGMA podcast in the coming days. Thank you so much.